And I remember I was working out here at Eglin Air Force Base, and I was writing software for flight mission planning, and the web came out, and they said, oh my gosh, this is going to make it so much better. It didn't. It just created a whole new set of problems. So we get this peak of inflated expectations, right? And what happens is as we round that peak of inflated expectations, people start to go figure out, they're trying to adopt it, they're trying to monetize, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and it drops down into a trial of disillusionment. Everybody's like, oh man, this sucks. And some of the things, some of the technologies never make it past that. They go away, they disappear, and you don't hear about them anymore. Everybody remember Betamax? Remember all the hype around Betamax? Yes, it was definitely better quality, but it didn't make it around, right? So what happens is that people in the technology cycle, they get past that trial of disillusionment, if it makes it past that trial of disillusionment, and they start to monetize it, and they start to figure out, hey, how can we make this work? How can we make this work for business? How can we solve real business problems? How do we improve things, right? We kind of get a slope of enlightenment, and then a plateau of productivity, and then it kind of goes along, right? So what does Gartner say about hype cycle? I used to have one up here for 2010, and this is 2011. They haven't released a 2012 yet. But they basically said, Gartner predicts that the most transformational technologies included in the hype cycle will be virtualization, which we've seen. Okay, there are different levels in the hype cycle. Big data, cloud advertising, cloud computing, platform as a service, public cloud computing, hybrid cloud computing. Some facts for you guys to chew on. 20% of businesses will own no IT assets by 2012. No IT assets. I talked with a company up in Atlanta, went in with a Microsoft sales team, and this company has a goal of owning nothing. They want to rent and lease everything. Why do they want to do that? Because they can expand and contract with the economy and what's going on. It's very important to them. What happens when we buy something? You got a cap. Janet, what do you guys do when you actually buy something?
We pay a lot of money and then we depreciate it.
You depreciate it. Exactly, right? Right? So people are changing to an expense-driven model. Why is that? You don't want to own assets. Why do you want to own IT assets sometimes? I mean, I'm not saying that you never want to own IT assets. I'm saying long-term, that's where we're going, okay? I'm not saying it's going away tomorrow. I'm trying to get you to think about it, okay? So I don't want all the IT guys to run away and say, hey, Vince says we're all going to lose our job, because that's not the case. There'll be a place for IT workers in the future. What you'll need to know how to do is how to connect the different cloud technologies, okay? Cloud computing. $55 billion per year will be spent on cloud computing in 2014, growing 27% annually. That's a huge amount of money. 68% of all workloads will be virtualized by 2013, but businesses use tools to manage less than half of their vital environment. But let me ask you a question. Sean, you guys have virtual machines, right? What's the problem with virtual machines versus physical machines? What do IT guys do every time they want a new workload?
They just ask for new virtual machines.
Exactly. So what happens? You end up with virtual machine sprawl. So now, we used to manage 10 machines, right? Well, now we're managing 10 machines, bigger iron with a lot more stuff on it, right? But we're stuffing 50 virtual machines on there with an operating system on them, and we've got firmware, and we've got software that's running on them, and they all have to be patched. They all have to be updated. And so what happens to your workload, Sean? How much of your time is spent patching things? Not yours. I mean, you're a director of IT now, but how many of your guys that are here spend their time patching machines?
To prepare to push the stuff out.
Yep, exactly. Now, they're automating that with some of these tools, but it's a problem. It's a problem. And virtualization was a good thing for us, but what happened is it created different behaviors. 80% of new commercial enterprise apps will be deployed on cloud platforms. 80%. What's the current administration trying to do? Politics aside. Pat, what are they trying to do? Trying to spur up the economy, right?
Yeah, that's true, but privatization is just taking the form of taking those computing resources off their books. They're trying not to own any assets.
That's correct. They're trying not to own any assets. And so what are they doing? New startups, even large enterprises are getting off and not owning assets anymore. So 80% of our new commercial enterprises, the new startups, the new places that are going to be creating jobs, what are they doing? They're going to be on the cloud. Why? They don't have to go out and go buy all this hardware. They can go out. Anybody. It is a business equalizer. Every small business can become a big business with cloud. You could start out and be just like Bill Gates was and their guys, working out in a garage and then eventually a red light district in Albuquerque, writing software and then publishing it out to the cloud without having to have a lot of IT infrastructure. By 2012, 80% of Fortune 100 enterprises will be using some cloud computing services, and 20% of businesses will own no IT assets. These are large enterprises too. It's not just the small guy, it's the big guys who are doing it. They're just doing it slower. And we'll talk about why that is. The bottom line is that early adopters are finding serious benefits, meaning that the cloud computing is real and warrants your scrutiny as a new set of platforms for business applications. I'm here to tell you that despite the hype cycle and despite all the things that are going on, the cloud is here and now. These are my words. Annually, Microsoft invests approximately $9 billion in R&D. As of this year, 95% of Microsoft's 40,000 engineers, I know Microsoft's bigger, they got sales folks, okay, are working on new cloud applications and new cloud services. Why is that? It's a game-changing paradigm. It's a change in how we do business. Technology leaders like Microsoft, and I'll throw in there Google, Amazon, okay? Sorry, Jason, please don't beat me up. Kimberly, don't beat me up. I don't want to get a flogging in the back. Don't invest this heavily on technology that's fad or has no real chance of succeeding. And I want to tell you guys something. For all of you fruit people that talk about that, the iCloud, okay, Microsoft guys and ladies will not admit this. It runs on Windows Azure. It runs on Windows Azure. They call it the fruit company on their reports.
And the Microsoft people are bound not to say it, right?
Business benefits of the cloud. These are the top 5 advantages of cloud computing. Paying only for what you use. Okay? Remember I talked about 60% of the computers are sitting out there, they're just sitting there doing nothing. What happens when all the people go? How many people actually have people working 3 shifts 24/7? Okay. You're the exception, okay? There may be a few others, okay? But most people don't. So what's that server and all those computers doing while you're not there? Do you guys have them turn them off? How many people have them turn it off? I know in our office we keep them on because I learned as a young boy that machines work better when they stay on all the time rather than being heated and cooled, taken up and down, so you just let them run. That's what we do. Not very green, is it? I don't think the Obama administration is going to come in here and get me or something. I don't know. Easy and fast deployment to end users. Let's talk about that. Like Windows Azure, Office 365, your traditional model when the software is built and deployed. Anybody know how long it takes every time they build a new version of Office, what the timeline is? Anybody? It's usually 18 months. It's 18 months to 2 years between release cycles. You know how often they're releasing it now with a cloud model? Every quarter. And they've got smaller patches coming out sooner. And we're not talking minuscule features. We're talking big features. Okay? So for somebody like us that does custom app development, we don't have to worry about the IT infrastructure anymore. Okay? We can put out changes much quicker. That doesn't take away the fact that we got to take time to build it. but we're not worrying about infrastructure and IT and all these things that we have to do before. That's not necessarily IT guys, don't get mad at me. Sean, I don't want you to be mad at me now. Or you either, Jamie, because I see you looking at me. I'm getting the daggers. People are changing, and it's a business benefit. They're moving from capital expenditure to operating expenditure. And why is that again? Again, we want to expand and contract. Okay? Encourages standard systems. Well, if we go to a cloud computing provider, why is it standard systems? Well, in order to get that economy of scale, to get that consumerization, they've got to standardize on some things across the board, okay? And that goes back to the thing that, does every application belong in the cloud? Right now, probably not. There will be some. So when you look at going to the cloud, you've got to evaluate and decide, hey, does this application really need to be in the cloud? What does it do? You know, I just recently worked with George over at Command Alcon, taking a look at their applications, trying to decide, does it make sense for the application to go to the cloud? We've got to go through and take a look at it and say, hey, what's your application portfolio out there, and does it make sense? I can tell you one that does make sense, content management systems. Why does that need to be internal? That can go to the cloud, that's easy. Requires less in-house staff. Now, IT guys, don't kill me here, but you guys can be repurposed to do other things that are more important, like helping the end users get the work done that they need done. Remember what I said? Computers don't exist for the purpose of the business. They exist to facilitate the business. Chief objections to the cloud. I'm going to hit the first one, security. Sean, I know you work for TechLinks. Before you were an IT director, you went all over Northwest Florida. I know you did it. Tell me, what's the typical environment that you saw when you went to somebody's small or medium business when you went to go see the servers?
Small room, a lock, and you went in. Sometimes you had a lock, sometimes you went in.
Yeah.
And, there was usually one rack or less, and there were several servers in there, the firewall.
Exactly. Most of them don't even have a lock. People talk to me, they want to know about their computers, and they're worried about security and their data, but you can step in there and say, hey, I'm walking to the office. Most of them don't have key code access. No, that's not so. When I go over to Wes's office, there's key code access, somebody there watching everything that you do. So that's a little bit different. They're a large enterprise, but in your medium business market, okay, most of them, people don't have, the servers are there. You have access to it. I think Sean mentioned that some of the people actually have their passwords on the bottom of the keyboard. Sean, I know you're a trusted vendor, but they gave you that, that password. Yep. Yeah? Hmm. And where'd you guys store it? Don't answer that. OneNote, right? No. Compliance issues. A lot of people talk about compliance issues, but when you ask them and you go back and you say, hey guys, I'm picking on Sean. It's because I've known Sean a long time. It's fun to pick on him. It's because I like him. Compliance issues. I hear things, they throw out SAS 70, SAS 16, you name it. Personally identifiable information, all that stuff. But when you go and ask them, can your closet meet that standard? The answer is no. And the chances are, unless you are a global enterprise, you may not be able to get to this kind of the standard that you're asking to hold a cloud computing provider to. And they have much more assets and capability to do it. Control. And I'm going to say this one. They think they lose control. You do not lose control when you're in the cloud. What you get to focus on is your application and your data. You're not worried about all the IT assets. Yes, you have to worry about security. Don't want to minimize that. You do. You have to worry about how your applications are interconnected. That's important. Got to do that. But control. But let's talk about that. What's the real issue? The underlying issue when it talks about cloud computing, number one thing is fear. People fear they're going to lose their job. They fear they're going to lose control. And what else? John? Where's Jonathan? Is he here? No? I was going to give him a hard time, man. What does everybody have a need to do? They have a need to own stuff. It's really cool. I'm sure Wes put me around, his arm around my shoulder, walked me into his data center and said, hey, man, check this out. Did key code access and walked in, right? All right? That's really cool to be able to show that data center off. So we kind of have a need to own stuff. And then, accountants like Janet, they want to see something.